A sudden return. An uninvited guest in the fields of France. In the quiet fields of France, in one of its small and peaceful corners, the local residents unexpectedly encountered something truly unusual. At the edge of the village, where just yesterday there was nothing but old oaks and wheat fields, a tank suddenly appeared. The formidable armored monster stood there as if waiting for its moment. But what was surprising was that it looked as though it had just returned from a military mission yesterday. There were no traces of rust, no signs of aging. The armor was in perfect condition. For the villagers, this was not just unexpected, it was a real shock. The first to notice the tank was a farmer who walked through these fields every morning with his flock of sheep. He was absolutely certain that he knew every 100 yards around here, and the appearance of the massive military vehicle made him immediately run back to the village for reinforcements. Soon, a small group of locals arrived at the scene, staring in bewilderment at this technological marvel. They peered inside, trying to find traces of the crew or to figure out where and how this machine could have ended up here. However, the strangest thing was that the tank was unmanned, yet inside, neatly placed on the seats, were leather journals and old maps. The documents looked as if someone had just used them, preserving the secrets of years gone by. The locals immediately realized this was not just a discovery but a mystery that demanded to be solved. But what possible explanations could there be for this sudden material displacement through time? The answers to these questions promised to be no less astonishing than the tank's very appearance. A disappearance without a trace. Where had the tank been all these years? The discovery of the tank in the fields of France raised as many questions as it did interest. Where had it been all these years since its disappearance? Back in the 40s during the war, dozens of tanks vanished without a trace, often falling victim to battles or being swallowed up by the mud of the battlefields. However, never before had it happened that a tank, having disappeared without a trace, would suddenly reappear after so many years in such perfect condition. The history of these combat vehicles has always been tied to battles, and their fate could be extremely varied. For example, some of them were submerged in rivers or left lost in swamps. But the fact that this tank looked brand new raises new questions. The disappearance of combat vehicles during the war was not uncommon, but they usually remained in the combat zone under layers of earth or debris. To think that a tank that vanished suddenly could remain in such condition for decades is almost unbelievable, especially considering that items were found on board that seem to have been used only recently. This leads one to think that the tank may not have spent all this time on the surface of our planet at all. Could it have been in some unknown place, the existence of which we can only speculate about? This sudden return from oblivion is a mystery that any screenwriter would envy. Everyone who heard about this story wondered, what happened to the tank during all those years? Where was it while the world was changing and evolving? How did it preserve its original appearance, and what do its diaries and maps really conceal? The answers to these questions are still ahead of us. And who knows? Perhaps they will help shed light on one of the most intriguing events of our time. The mysterious diaries. What was the crew hiding? When the diaries from the tank ended up in the hands of astonished locals, they felt as if they were at the center of a spy movie. The leather covers had darkened slightly with age, but the pages inside were surprisingly well preserved. At first glance, the entries looked like typical crew reports, recording movements and tactical maneuvers. However, upon closer inspection, hidden passages became apparent, clearly encrypted. Perhaps this was done to conceal information from the enemy, or maybe there was information on those pages that even allies were not meant to see. Each page of the diary told of the turbulent days of World War II. Of events on the battlefields, of the orders the crew received. However, some notes looked as if they had been written in haste, with a trembling hand. These fragments described strange phenomena and events that the crew had to witness, as if someone was trying to record those moments that did not fit into the usual course of the war. In one of the diaries, a map was drawn in the margins, a schematic image with no labels, only crooked lines that resembled borders or retreat routes. There were also mentions of inexplicable signals and strange light phenomena that, according to the crew, they observed in the night sky. These entries hinted that the people inside the tank had witnessed something unusual, perhaps even paranormal. And although the diaries shed light on some details of the crew's life, they left more mysteries than answers. Perhaps the key to unraveling this mystery was also hidden in the old maps found inside the vehicle. Old maps, lost treasures, or navigation through time? When the maps from the tank were carefully examined, they made no less of an impression than the diaries. These documents were surprisingly well preserved and looked as if they had been drawn quite recently. The maps marked places that had long since disappeared from modern geography, and routes that led through fields now built over with cities and roads. But the most astonishing thing was that one of the maps contained unfamiliar symbols and directions that did not correspond to any known language or navigation system. All of this raised questions about possible treasures or lost artifacts. Were these routes designed for the search of hidden resources? Or perhaps they were part of a secret plan concealed behind official military orders. However, some researchers suggested that the maps might have been connected to movement through time. The lines did not lead to real geographic locations, but instead transported people through intervals of time. In some places on the map, points were marked without explanation, like unsigned puzzles waiting to be solved. The ongoing investigation of the maps kept all the local residents in suspense. Could this discovery suddenly reveal secrets related to the disappearance of the tanks? Could this be evidence of the existence of parallel worlds or temporal anomalies? Or are the answers hidden in the diaries, which have already begun to reveal some secrets? These unexpected discoveries added a new twist to the story of the mysterious tank, and new findings could shed light on events from years past. However, every step forward raised new questions, leaving room for endless theories and investigations. A temporal anomaly or a hoax? What do the experts say? Immediately after the tank was discovered in the French fields, the question of its origin interested not only the local residents but also experts from various fields. Some scientists put forward a hypothesis about a temporal anomaly based on the tank's perfect preservation and the documents found inside it. They suggested that the tank might have fallen victim to temporal shifts, which could have transported it from the 1940s directly into our time. Such displacements seemed unbelievable, but the presence of pristine equipment and recently used documents gave reason to ponder. However, not all specialists agree with the theory of temporal distortions. Among the skeptics, there were those who put forward more down-to-earth explanations. For example, a hoax carried out using high-tech methods could explain the sudden appearance of the tank. In today's world, it is entirely possible to fake equipment and documents, including a map with mysterious symbols. This scenario raises questions about who could have carried out such a complex operation and for what purpose. While scientists discussed possible causes, experts in the history of armaments conducted a thorough examination of the tank. They discovered that the model of the vehicle and its internal mechanisms matched those used in the 1940s. However, some details did not fit the standard models of that era, which once again fueled debates about the possibility of time travel. These discrepancies led to speculation about whether there had been outside interference that affected the condition of the tank. Do the experts' opinions converge, or does each of their conclusions open up a new mystery? Regardless of whether one believes in scientific wonders or hoaxes, every fact, every new perspective on the tank added even more intriguing details to the story. How will the investigation develop further, and what other secrets might the diaries and maps conceal? This discovery reshaped the understanding of what is possible and impossible, but left more questions than answers, keeping public interest consistently high. Eyewitness account. What did the local residents see? Immediately after the tank was discovered in the French fields, the question of its origin intrigued not only the local residents but also experts from various fields. Some scientists put forward a hypothesis about a temporal anomaly based on the tank's perfect preservation and the documents found inside it. They suggested that the tank might have fallen victim to temporal shifts, which perhaps transported it from the 1940s directly into our time. Such displacement seemed unbelievable, but the presence of pristine equipment and recently used documents made people think. However, not all specialists agree with the theory of temporal distortion. Among the skeptics, there were those who put forward more down-to-earth explanations. For example, a hoax carried out using high-tech methods could explain the sudden appearance of the tank. In today's world, it is quite possible to fake equipment and documents, including a map with mysterious symbols. This scenario raises questions about who could have carried out such a complex operation and for what purpose. While scientists discussed possible causes, experts in the history of armaments conducted a thorough examination of the tank. They discovered that the model of the vehicle and its internal mechanisms matched those used in the 1940s. However, some details did not fit the standard models of that era, which once again fueled debates about the possibility of time travel. These discrepancies led to speculation about whether there had been outside interference that affected the condition of the tank. Do the experts' opinions converge, or does each of their conclusions open up a new mystery? Regardless of whether one believes in scientific wonders or hoaxes, every fact, every new perspective on the tank added even more intriguing details to the story. How will the investigation develop further, and what other secrets might the diaries and maps conceal? This discovery reshaped the understanding of what is possible and impossible, but it left more questions than answers, keeping public interest consistently high. When the sensational news about the tank spread throughout the area, local residents couldn't stay on the sidelines and began sharing their own observations. One of the witnesses, an elderly farmer, claimed that on the night before the tank appeared, he noticed a strange flickering on the horizon. At first glance, his words sounded like fairy tales, but they matched the mentions of light phenomena found in the diaries. Moreover, several villagers who lived near the field where the tank surfaced spoke of strange sounds that night. It was something between the hum of an airplane and the whisper of wind passing very close to the ground. Imagine some even swore they saw shadows gliding through the night as if someone was trying to carry out a covert operation. These visions could have been dismissed as deceptive plays of light and shadow, but in light of the tank story, they raised many questions. The villagers seemed convinced that they had witnessed something out of the ordinary. Many believe that this tank was a remnant from another era, and its appearance could have been the result of forces beyond human understanding. And as often happens in small villages, rumors began to spread. Everyone wanted to contribute, to add something new and exciting to the story. Some even recalled legends and strange phenomena in the area, linking them to the recent events. Nevertheless, despite all the speculation, the real events remained a closely guarded secret that was difficult to unravel. The stories told by the villagers not only further complicated the plot, but also added a sense of mystery and unpredictability to an already complex case. Historical context: the disappearance of tanks during World War II. To understand how a tank could disappear and then reappear decades later in perfect condition, we need to go back to the time of World War II. In those terrible years, tanks were literally worth their weight in gold and were actively used in combat operations on all fronts. The disappearance of combat vehicles was not unusual, but the reasons for these disappearances were often mundane: battles, coming under enemy fire, or being submerged in rivers or swamps. Many vehicles remained at the sites of their last battles, buried under layers of earth and debris, or were destroyed right on the battlefield. In addition, during the war, it was common for equipment to be left behind in the chaos of battle and fall into enemy hands, or for crews to destroy their own vehicles to prevent them from being captured. Some vehicles were considered missing without a trace, as their fate remained unknown. Sometimes they were remembered years later when these vehicles were discovered by chance, like lost artifacts from the past. Of course, the stories of missing tanks remain only as somber pages in military history. However, such a case in a French village did not fit the standard scenarios. The complete absence of rust and damage raised even more questions. After all, even underground machinery ages. Moreover, the diaries and maps stored in the tank looked new, as if they had been kept in perfect conditions all this time. This is what set the situation apart from all previously known cases. The disappearance of tanks during wartime was not something unbelievable, but their sudden reappearance decades later is a different story altogether, raising new mysteries. However, there were also those who suggested that this was either a carefully crafted hoax or an unusual story worthy of investigation. Future technologies, unexpected discoveries inside the vehicle. When they looked inside the tank, the experts were shocked by the discoveries, which seemed ahead of their time. Some of the parts and mechanisms found inside made them wonder about the possible transfer of technology from the future. Upon examining the engine, it turned out that it was equipped with components that did not match the standards of the 1940s. The materials and designs used resembled developments from later periods more than military equipment from World War II. Electronic control systems, which shouldn't have existed in vehicles of that era, looked as if someone had upgraded them using modern technology. Experts compared them to devices one would expect to see in models from the late 20th century or even later. This fact created one of the most puzzling mysteries. How could such advanced technologies have ended up in a machine manufactured decades ago? In addition, strange instruments were found in one of the tank's compartments, which none of the researchers could accurately identify. These devices might have been intended for communication or navigation, but their functionality remained unclear. One of the most intriguing elements was a compass that, in addition to the standard directions, had extra markings not found in conventional navigation systems. These unexpected discoveries gave rise to numerous theories, from experiments with secret technologies to hypotheses about contact with the future. The discovery of technologies inside the tank that could not have existed in the years when it was manufactured added yet another link to the chain of mysterious events surrounding this machine. These findings only made the mystery harder to solve, leaving experts perplexed and fueling further interest in studying the enigmatic appearance of the tank in the fields of France. How could such a temporal discrepancy have occurred? And are there still more astonishing details hidden inside this steel enigma? A solution or more questions? A conspiracy, a coincidence, or something more? As the puzzle of the tank began to take shape from all the collected facts and eyewitness accounts, analysts tried to figure out what it all meant. Each discovery and every new fact added intrigue and created the sense that this was no mere coincidence. Perhaps this could have been a carefully orchestrated conspiracy, organized with a secret purpose. Who could possess the resources and knowledge for such a complex plan? On the other hand, one could assume that this was simply an incredible coincidence. But the likelihood that such a complex machine as a tank could disappear and then reappear decades later without any signs of aging cast doubt on this version. Moreover, the discovery of new technologies among old designs raised more questions than answers. However, there were also those who believed that the solution might lie deeper, perhaps in the intervention of forces we do not yet know about. The theory of a temporal anomaly or even parallel world still remained on the agenda. The diaries with their mysterious entries, ancient maps with unknown symbols, and completely new technologies, all of this pointed to the possible existence of a previously unknown phenomenon. For many, the investigation had only just begun, and each new discovery could lead to a broader picture. Although it was impossible to immediately determine whether this incident was the result of a conspiracy, a coincidence, or something more complex, one thing was clear. The discovered tank became a true historical sensation, capturing the minds and imaginations of many. Questions remain, but they will not go unanswered as the work continues and new information may emerge at any moment. Fantasy or reality? Final conclusions on the case of the mysterious tank. When the dust settled around the mysterious tank story, it became clear that we were witnessing one of the most astonishing incidents in recent times. Every element of this mystery, from the perfectly preserved condition of the vehicle to the remarkable discoveries inside it, sparked new discussions and speculation. A number of experts put forward a theory about temporal anomalies, linking it to the unusual technologies found in the tank. But some believe this is a high-tech hoax, and the stories told by local residents only added fuel to the fire. Their visions and the sounds they heard that night, which matched entries from the diaries, raised questions about a possible experiment or phenomenon that remains unexplained. The unusual events, as if coming together, formed a story that made everyone wonder just how far human knowledge extends and where the boundary between reality and fiction truly lies. The fact remains. The tank appeared as if out of thin air, and this event demands the deepest analysis. Every artifact found in the tank and every diary entry offered clues that could potentially shed light on this unusual phenomenon. However, the current explanations only create even more mysteries, so each new discovery only makes our understanding more complicated, leaving everyone involved in the investigation with the sense that something significant has happened. Further discoveries could reveal more to us about technology, the secrets of war, and perhaps even the very nature of time itself. But for now, the tank remains proof that the world is full of surprises, and this event serves as a reminder that many mysteries are still waiting for their time to be unraveled.